During World War II, the Japanese military created a new and devastating weapon, the kamikaze. These were pilots who deliberately crashed their planes into enemy targets, with the intention of causing maximum damage and destruction. The kamikaze were seen as a last resort for the Japanese military, as they were losing ground to the Allied forces. Despite the high cost in human lives, the kamikaze attacks were carried out with unwavering commitment and bravery. In this video, we will explore the history and impact of the kamikaze attack, as well as examine the background used by the Japanese military. Subscribe now to our channel for more history videos. Kamikaze is a Japanese term that originated from the name of a typhoon in a legend that is said to have saved Japan from a Mongol invasion in 1281. In English, kamikaze generally refers to suicide attacks carried out by Japanese pilots at the end of the Pacific Campaign of World War II against Allied naval vessels. In Japanese, however, kamikaze only refers to the typhoon. During World War II, suicide squadrons from the Imperial Japanese Navy were called Shinpū Tokubetsu Kōgekitai. Since the end of World War II, the word kamikaze has been used for a wider range of suicide attacks. After the defeat in the Battle of Midway in 1942, Japan began the Pacific War, and in 1943 to 1944, Allied forces began to spy on Japanese movements. Japanese fighter planes were often outclassed by American fighter planes, especially the F-4U Corsair and P-51 Mustang. After the important military base of Saipan fell into Allied hands in 1944, control of the Saipan military base allowed Allied forces to use the B-29 Superfortress long-range bomber to destroy the Japanese mainland. Japan predicted that the Philippines would be the next target. Since Japanese forces were no longer able to break through the American combat fleet, the idea of using kamikaze tactics was realized by Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi in October 1944. Japan began to use kamikaze tactics at that time because they felt they were no longer able to break through the American combat fleet, as their own navy was almost exhausted and their army was overwhelmed. The idea of using this special force was initiated by Vice Admiral Kimpei Teraoka, who was the Chief of Staff of the Navy Commander in the Philippines, who complained that ordinary tactics were impossible and they, the Japanese forces, had to become superhuman. This idea was then realized by Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, who replaced Teraoka in October 1944 and was later known as the father of kamikaze. This was because Onishi was considered responsible for its formation. At the same time in 1944, Lieutenant Tanaka emphasized that a severe blow to the enemy target could only be successful if the pilot participated in the rocket until it reached the target, and he was even willing to be the first to do it. On October 17, 1944, this prediction became a reality when Allied forces attacked Sulwan Island to begin the Battle of Leyte Gulf. The Japanese Imperial Navy's First Air Fleet, based in Manila, was tasked with assisting Japanese ships attempting to destroy Allied forces in Leyte Gulf. However, as the first Japanese air fleet at that time only had 40 planes, 34 Mitsubishi Zero fighter planes, 3 Nakajima B-6N torpedo bombers, 1 Mitsubishi G-4M and 2 Yokosuka P-1Y land-based bombers, and 1 reconnaissance plane, the mission faced by the Japanese Navy pilots seemed impossible to carry out. Therefore, commander of the First Air Fleet, Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, decided to form a suicide attack unit, the Special Attack Air Force Kamikaze, consisting of brave pilots. During World War II, the first kamikaze attacks carried out by Japan were unclear, as there was evidence that the attack in the Battle of Midway in 1944 was just an ordinary collision. However, Captain Masafumi Arima created the kamikaze tactic and led about 100 Japanese dive bombers to attack the USS Franklin aircraft carrier near Leyte Gulf on October 13, 1944. Although Arima died in the attack, it was not stated that this was a planned suicide attack. On October 21, 1944, an unknown pilot carried out the first recorded kamikaze attack on the HMAS Australia cruiser near Leyte Island. On October 25, aircraft carrier ships of the U.S. Navy were more vulnerable to kamikaze attacks than British warships with decks made of steel. The Kamikaze Special Attack Force carried out its first mission on the same day, which successfully destroyed the U.S. destroyer USS St. Lo, although only one aircraft managed to hit the ship. Many U.S. Navy aircraft carriers survived kamikaze attacks during World War II, including the USS Franklin and USS Intrepid, but the HMAS Australia was attacked again by kamikaze and killed 86 crew members towards the end of the war. On April 6, 1945, the peak of the kamikaze attacks occurred in the Okinawa Islands, aimed at destroying Allied destroyer ships. The attack involved around 1,465 aircraft and successfully sank at least 21 U.S. ships towards the end of the battle. Japan trained pilots from its air combat fleet to become kamikaze pilots because they were far behind in war technology compared to the Allied forces. The Allied Navy began developing techniques to counter Japanese kamikaze attacks, such as shooting kamikaze aircraft with AA guns on warships. However, such tactics could not be used to fight off attacks from Japanese kamikaze aircraft attacking from high angles. In 1945, the Japanese military began storing hundreds of aircraft for use in kamikaze missions and suicide ships to confront the Allied naval fleet. When an Oka aircraft pilot and other kamikaze pilots completed their mission, the Ministry of the Navy would send a letter to the pilots' parents about their death in honor of the country. Not only that, but radio and newspapers were also the government's voice in this matter. All kamikaze attacks were considered as divine heroes. Japanese people tend to view death during the war as fallen cherry blossoms, where after the pilot and sailor die, they will meet again at the Yasukuni Shrine altar in Tokyo. Kamikaze pilots are also treated as gods and saints. They are referred to as Washi-kami, eagle gods, and Kaminari-kami, thunder gods. Admiral Onishi himself said that the first kamikaze volunteers were also considered gods. All kamikaze pilots, like other fallen members, received posthumous promotions and decorations. And that's all for our video on the kamikaze pilots of Japan during World War II. It's important to remember the bravery and sacrifice of these pilots, who were willing to give their lives for their country. While we can never forget the tragedy and devastation of war, we can honor the memory of those who fought and lost their lives by striving for peace and understanding in the world. Thank you for watching.